9:22 Eastern Time, and here we were with pre-existing plans to take on this topic for 2 hours tonight. And here tonight, we're presiding over a discussion featuring now two breaking newspaper stories, the papers that are battling over news in the Trump era, the New York Times, and now the Washington Post is out with a headline that reads, Sessions, the Attorney General, spoke twice with Russian ambassador during Trump's presidential campaign, justice officials say. So this is landing with a thud in inboxes and tomorrow morning on door stoops around Washington and New York. Adam Entus, this is also a triple byline, one of the journalists with the Washington Post, has been able to join us by telephone. Adam, as best you can, how do we know that this happened? Why didn't we know previously that this has happened? After all, this is the Attorney General, longtime member of the U.S. Senate prior to that, who has just been through a confirmation process.
Right. So we had heard from sources that there was an encounter between Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, and Sessions in July on the sidelines of the Republican National Convention. And basically what we did was we asked the question, did he have that meeting? Did he have other meetings? And then we looked closely at his testimony, and we realized that he had been asked about this both orally in his confirmation hearings with the Senate Judiciary Committee, and also in response to written questions from members of the panel. And so those two things just did not mesh. And so as we saw with Michael Flynn, the issue here for us is often is fact checkers just trying to verify that what is said publicly is actually the case.
Now, I know you do news and not analysis, but why? One of the reasons this is going to be so important and so germane to the current conversation is can there be an investigation headquartered inside the Justice Department structure inside the Trump administration? Senator Sessions was among the first elected officials in this country to come out in favor of Donald Trump, thick and thin. He's there now at the finish as Attorney General. Or will this be fuel to that effort to get this investigation out from under the umbrella of the administration, correct?
Yeah, I think that's obviously the next step here is the question, is there an issue here with Sessions remaining the person in charge of this, and or should he look at recusing himself? He hasn't ruled out recusing himself. He so far, has not responded to calls that he do so. I think, one needs to look at the context here. I mean, Kislyak, the Russian ambassador, who, U.S. officials are sort of divided about how involved he was, how much knowledge he had about the extent of the Russian operation to try to influence the 2016 election. Here he was, obviously trying to get information from, a lot of American officials. Flynn is one person, and Senator Sessions is another, a person that he had reached out to and wanted to talk to, and obviously wanted, after those conversations, much like what happened with Flynn, Kislyak, one would expect, sent reports to Moscow detailing his discussions with Sessions, and like he did in the case of Flynn. And so, what's going on here is, Kislyak is trying to probably get information from Sessions about what he knows about the posture of the Trump campaign at that stage.
Well, I think this, Adam, it opens up so many questions, and you got to this question yourself when you reported this, but Al Franken, the senator from Minnesota, raised the question during, as you mentioned, during confirmation hearings with Mr. Sessions, and he asked about him, did you know about any communication between members of the campaign and the Russians? And he went ahead in his answer beyond the question. He said, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in the campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians. He answered a question that hadn't been put to him, which is certainly questionable given the fact that he didn't tell the truth there. What are the question that was raised, again, Adam, with Michael Flynn, why would he deny having had conversations with the Russians? because that raises the big open question, what was going on?
Right, and just to add to that, we after we posted the story, we found another even more direct instance of this. On January 17th, Senator Leahy asked Sessions in written questions. He asked him. He said several of the president-elect's nominees or senior advisors have Russian ties. Have you, Sessions, been in contact with anyone connected to any part of the Russian government about the 2016 election, either before or after Election Day? Leahy wrote. Sessions responded with one word: no. Obviously, that's not the case. So just, I don't really understand the disconnect here. Why both in written and oral answers you don't have just an acknowledgement of the meeting. I mean, I think Sessions has a very good point to make that as a senator and a member of an important committee like the Senate Armed Services Committee, he meets with dozens of ambassadors, whether they're the Brits or the French or the Indians, the Germans, the Ukrainians. Obviously, why not just answer the question, accurately?
Adam Intis of the Washington Post, one of the three journalists on the Post story byline tonight. We have, again, two competing breaking stories on the two best newspaper websites, arguably, in this country, the New York Times and now the Washington Post, with this story that the now Attorney General spoke twice with the Russian ambassador during the presidential campaign for Donald Trump. All of this will be fleshed out tonight and into tomorrow.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.